Thank you so much, Dr. Moreno. It's really great to be here. It's such a wonderful, wonderful group that you have, and that you've been meeting for 40 years on Wednesday mornings every week, except for Christmas and New Year's. That's really phenomenal, and just the solidarity that I feel among all of you, and the yo-yoing, it all really resonates with me. So I want to start out by just giving a little bit more of an introduction of me. So again, my name is Gayle McLaughlin, and I'm the former two-term mayor of Richmond, California. I served 13 years in elected office in Richmond altogether, from 2005 through 2017. So I've been in office very recently. I'm not in office right now because I resigned to run my primary campaign for lieutenant governor, and I'll share a little bit about that later. But I mainly want to talk about Richmond because we are a success story, and I think it parallels some of the challenges and some of the work that you are doing here in Anaheim. So first of all, I'm also a co-founder of a group called the Richmond Progressive Alliance. And that's a diverse, inclusive, year-round, corporate-free organization.
Corporate-free?
Yes, corporate-free. That means we don't take corporate money, and we only support corporate-free candidates running for office. We think that's important because corporations have dominated our politics, they've dominated our electoral field, they've dominated our lives for way too long, all the advertising and, politics, democracy is for people. And corporations, have their profit-making focus as their bottom line. And so, they're private entities and they operate in that realm, but in the public realm, in the democracy realm, in the realm of electoral work and politics, policy making, we don't need that influence from corporations whose purpose is to make profit. That's a different realm. Instead, we need people. We need people to bond with one another and to put out their votes on election day. So that we can build a true democracy, with every vote counting from every person. So in Richmond, we recognized this. In 2003, the whole city council at that time was in the hands of Chevron. We have a big Chevron oil refinery in our city, the largest oil refinery in the state of California, the largest greenhouse gas emitter in the state of California. And the city council was in their hands. Chevron had funded council candidate campaigns for decades. And so we were activists in the community. We would go up to city council meetings. We'd say, what are you doing, city council, about homelessness? What are you doing about police brutality? What are you doing about Chevron harming us with their pollution and not providing their fair share of taxes? And so the city council would tune us out, right? And they would vote whatever way they wanted to, which, 99.9% of the time was not in the interest of the community. So we decided that we were going to form this alliance, this progressive alliance. We call ourselves the RPA, the Richmond Progressive Alliance, and we decided to come together based on our progressive values, regardless of party preference. Some of us were progressive Democrats, some were Green Party members, some had no party affiliation. And we said it's time that we set party aside and just look at our values. And we decided to run corporate-free candidates for office. Now, I was the first corporate-free council member that was elected in Richmond in 2004. Then I was elected as mayor and re-elected as mayor, termed out, and ran for city council after I termed out as mayor so I could keep doing the work. And
let me interrupt real quick. Todd, would you consider yourself a corporate-free candidate?
What does that mean?
that means
you don't take campaign contributions?
You don't take corporate campaign contributions.
I take a lot of corporations. Yeah, I can't say that. Yeah.
Okay, so we
But just real quick, as long as they're like some legitimate, I get your point. But campaign contributions, when you're trying to take out an incumbent and have to raise $2 million, you take a lot of money from a lot of people, as long as they're not convicted felons, okay, who have really ripped off people or corporations, then yeah.
Thank you for your honesty.
Sure.
Okay, so Chevron, I might add, in 2014 spent $3.5 million to try and defeat me and 2 other progressives running for office. This is a city of 110,000 people.
Sounds familiar, Gayle.
Okay, and I'm gonna. That's exactly right. The comparison with Anaheim is big because you have a big corporation. You have Disney here, right? And we know that Disney doesn't pay its fair share of taxes, and Disney doesn't pay its workers right, and just probably controls a lot of candidates.
Although they did finally get some really good contracts.
Oh, did
to
it?
their credit. Yeah,
All right. So see, and I want to mention that I had the opportunity of meeting Dr. Moreno in last year, as well as other candidates like Justin Sampson here. I met Andy. Yeah, who had to leave. So I had, during my lieutenant governor campaign, I had an opportunity to meet wonderful, wonderful people, and here's an opportunity to continue to build relationships. So we were able to defeat Chevron's candidates, even in spite of their $1 million. Today we have 5 corporate-free council seats out of 7 that we have filled in our city council. That's a super majority. So you already have a good start. You have Jose Moreno as a council member. So at some point you can have I don't know what the nature of your council is right now, but at some point you could have a majority of corporate-free council members, and then you know that they stand with the people and they stand with the community. So
Gayle, does being corporate-free mean anti-corporate?
no. So it's like being corporate-free means, it doesn't mean you're anti-business. Of course, we support especially small business development, because small businesses actually provide the vast majority of jobs in our country. So, there are so many wonderful small businesses that provide good services, good products, good jobs. We, in Richmond, we support that, a small business economy, and we support any businesses that are accountable and responsible and don't harm the community and aren't trying to make gargantuan profits at the expense of the community. But it's a question of how we run our democracy, how we run our politics, and that's why we want to be corporate-free during that, during the political process, agenda that we work on in this country. We want to build a real democracy, and we don't really have that yet. We've worked hard to get the vote for women, to get the vote for African Americans. We should have the vote for immigrant families. There's so much that we need to build on in this country, and in our state in particular. So let me share with you some of the accomplishments that we had because we had a local movement in Richmond, and because we had corporate-free council members and a corporate-free mayor. And I also want to add that I was in a minority on the council for all but 2 years. So from 2015 to 2017, we had a majority. Actually, it was closer to from just 2017. We had some sort of marginal majority in the other 2 years, 2015 and 16. But before that, I was a real minority, sometimes the only council member and mayor for the first 2 years as mayor that really had a true progressive agenda. So, but because we had a movement, because we had people joining together like you joined together, who came to city council meetings and supported bold progressive issues that I was championing, and that I was standing with them. Because when you get elected, unfortunately, oftentimes elected officials go away and the movement dissipates. But what you want is elected officials that stand shoulder to shoulder with the people. That's what we all want and need. And you can be an elected official and still be an organizer, still be an activist. That's what should happen. We need to put power in the hands of working people. So that's ultimately the gain, the goal. So what we were able to do by really, doing this shoulder-to-shoulder work was pass a minimum wage in Richmond to $15 an hour. We passed rent control, the first new rent control law in California in 30 years. We reduced crime dramatically. I mean, Richmond was known not only as a Chevron-dominated city before the RPA, but a high crime city. We reduced homicides 75% by addressing the root causes of problems and by having community-involved policing. We hold our police force accountable, and we did things like have an Office of Neighborhood Safety, which hired formerly incarcerated people that had turned their lives around, and we hired them as outreach teams to go into our neighborhoods hardest hit by crime and to reach out to the young people who, were involved in these troubled lifestyles and quell the violence before it begins, and to steer them into the programs they needed: job training, education, anger management, substance abuse. So these outreach teams really worked. Plus, we did all kinds of services, filled our community centers, filled with programs for our youth, renovated our parks, and had made sure we had huge athletic teams, and that we supported them. So these are the things that you could do with a movement. And like I said, I know you have a very, very much of a similar issue in Anaheim, and I'm sure that there is this, you might have some successes already with Disney, and just like we've had some major successes with Chevron, but they don't go away. They still are trying to defeat us, and we have 3 candidates in the RPA running this year, and Chevron doesn't want them to win. We have a young 28-year-old African-American man who is running for mayor, and he's an RPA member, and he's a council member now. He's a great young man. And we want to see the kind of true progressives get into office. And that takes a movement. It really does. So I'm here to say that in Richmond, we have some successes that I hope gives some inspiration. I want to mention some of the other things we did. We got over $100 million from Chevron in additional taxes. We also decriminalized homelessness. So, before the RPA, people couldn't sleep in their cars or sleep in public spaces. Now they can. We still have to do more work. We supported our immigrant community. We have a very diverse community. Our largest demographics is Latinos. We have 40% Latinos, 27% African Americans, 16% Asians, and the rest white. So whites are really in the minority. And we value our diversity. It makes us strong. And so we are a sanctuary city. And we have, stood for our immigrant community over and over again, and we took Trump to court because of his policies against sanctuary cities. So we're not afraid to do these bold things. We sued Chevron for its major fire and other incidents that they harmed our community with. We also took on Wall Street for their foreclosure issues in the height of the foreclosure crisis. So these are the things you can do when you have that power, up and beyond an elected or 2 or 3 or 5 elected officials representing you, because elected officials are not going to save us. They can play a role, and it's wonderful when they win, because they could use their seat if they're a true progressive, like Dr. Moreno uses his position to really help all of you and keep you all building solidarity with one another. And I was very, very honored to meet him. I was introduced to him by a friend who I met during my campaign for lieutenant governor. So she said, hey, they could use a progressive alliance in Anaheim. And, I know this is kind of like a progressive alliance. You don't endorse candidates. If you ever chose to either take on endorsements or form another kind of sister organization, one that does endorse candidates that are true corporate-free progressives, I would think that, would be a good development, and you would have a lot of overlap with what you're doing right now. That, of course, is up to you, but I think when you have elected officials and candidates who stand shoulder to shoulder with the movement and are all part of a membership of an alliance who meets regularly. I mean, you guys meet once a week. The RPA meets once a month. We're a membership organization. The steering committee meets once a month. The whole membership meets once every 3 months. So we grew it, by knocking on doors. We grew our movement for over 15 years now, and by being at every community event, by coming to city council meetings, by making it clear that we're tired of Chevron running our community. We're tired of people being poor in our community without the raising of the minimum wage, which is why we raised it. We know that Chevron made billions while our community remained poor and was getting more poor, and nothing was being done. The city council was saying, let's wait. The market will solve everything. Things will trickle down to the poorer neighborhoods eventually. Well, it never did. So we focused on those neighborhoods and making things better in those neighborhoods. Still got more work to do, of course. So I also want to mention that I just had an opportunity to meet Betty today from City of Orange, and I would love to see the City of Orange have a progressive alliance. We can all be sister progressive alliances up and down the state. And so that is something that my campaign for Lieutenant Governor, to switch a little bit to that, was promoting. Now, I didn't make the top 2, so I'm not in the general election, but we did great work, got over 250,000 votes. We were able to have over 100 endorsements from progressive groups, from our revolution groups. Many of you know that was the groups, those are the groups Bernie Sanders launched. From DSA groups, you had a DSA member here earlier, Democratic Socialists of America. From Green Party groups. I ran no party preference, so I was able to get progressive Democrats and Greens and Peace and Freedom and others to endorse me. It was a great opportunity to reach out to the progressive groups up and down the state. Now, because we didn't make the general, I have chosen, and with many others, to keep the organizing work going by forming a California Progressive Alliance. And the California Progressive Alliance is just getting going, and what we are is a group of corporate-free volunteer progressives who elevate progressive ideas, who support corporate-free candidates, who support issue-based progressives, progressive ideas, progressive groups, and who want to communicate and link a dialogue together among progressives, among our whole progressive family in California, as sisters and brothers, respecting each other and building that statewide force. Because while we're promoting these local progressive alliances, we know that not everything can be solved on a local level. And so we need to have this statewide pressure as well, for things like single-payer Medicare for all, for free public college, and this one really relates to all of you, reforming Prop 13. So that means closing the corporate loophole. Keep Prop 13 for household owners, for homeowners. That's what it was meant for. Corporations took advantage. Disney does not pay its fair share of taxes. You would be getting a lot more money. So I'm getting the word that it's time to wrap up, and we want to have questions. So I just want to end before I take questions by saying there's a founding convention for the California Progressive Alliance in February in San Luis Obispo, 2019. So you're all invited. I have flyers I can leave, and it tells you how to get, you can get on the CaliforniaProgressiveAlliance.org website and get updates on the convention and show up if you can. And I just want to say thank you all for what you're doing. I've been very touched, and I'll take any of your questions. Yes.
First of all, thank you so much for coming down. It's really great. I heard your name in different spaces, and you definitely lived up to the hype that I that I heard in progressive circles around your candidacy, and especially how transformative it is to really, to just not take corporate money. That's not the status quo. And so one of the things that was really divisive in the Democratic Party, I felt, was the Hillary versus Bernie kind of, and it still is. There's old wounds, as I've found. But so I'd like to think. I'd like to hear what you think about that and how to heal that and how to find the soul or the core of the Democratic Party or the progressiveness within it. But I also want to hear about because I've heard a lot about your city when it comes to rent control and a lot of the misinformation campaign that Prop 10 has garnered, and just every city, whenever it gets brought up, they're always saying property values are going to go down, your rents are actually going to go up, they're not going to it's insane. So I'd like to hear your thoughts about that, because I think that the living wage and rent control go hand in hand.
It's true, absolutely. So, two questions that you asked. One is the Democratic Party status, and the other is rent control. So let me start with rent control. So Richmond had, our city council passed rent control without going to the ballot at first. And then the apartment association started gathering signatures, telling lies to people, just like they're telling lies about Prop 10, the repeal of Costa-Hawkins, which will help us protect all of the tenants in California, or in cities that have rent control. And so what we did, and they were successful in getting signatures, the apartment association, to cause the city council to rescind our ordinance. But that didn't stop us. We right away started organizing to put a ballot measure on the ballot for 2016. And we found that was an easy thing. The people of Richmond were definitely with us. We gathered the signatures without any trouble. And we were able to pass rent control, like I said, the first new rent control law in 30 years. So it shows it can be done. But we had to build a coalition. Even beyond the Progressive Alliance, the RPA, we had 20 groups in our rent control coalition. I mean, everything from gardening clubs to the tenants union to ACE, Alliance of Californians for Community Empowerment, and so many other groups. So coalition building is the key to overcoming the Apartments Association and all the attacks, and those who don't understand that you have to, it's not the full solution, rent control, to the housing crisis, but it's something that stems the hemorrhaging that we see right now, and we have to protect tenants. And I'm a tenant myself, and it's really, really important to have stable neighborhoods. Now, on the Democratic Party, so I used to be a Green Party member, and that was really has 10 key values from everything from social justice to environmental justice to economic justice. I chose to become no party preference in 2016 to vote for Bernie Sanders, because you could be NPP and still vote on the Democratic ticket in California. And since my lieutenant governor campaign, going up and down the state, I have seen all the wonderful work that so many progressive Democrats, and I've always known this, are doing to really hold and hold accountable and fight the corporate funded and corporate dominated leadership of the Democratic Party. And I applaud that, I support it, our revolution groups are just out there doing extraordinary work. When you have corporate funded candidates and a party that doesn't make a fight to have these corporations stand apart from politics, you have some problems. So I always say we need people within the Democratic Party fighting the good fight, and we need those of us who are outside the two-party system fighting the good fight. So I say we do both. I think it's a problem when I agree with Nina Turner, who says any blue won't do. You can't just say any Democrat. You need the Democrats that are standing with the people and not the corporations.
Well, and we're hoping also Republicans say that themselves too.
Yes.
Not any red, but it's about
It's true.
the honesty of their beliefs rather than just interests. Yeah, they could look at me like that, but it's true. We want honest people, whatever their party is. Yes, Kim.
Hello.
Hi.
So I work at Disneyland.
She's the president of Disneyland.
I'm not the president of Disneyland. But I've heard what you have said, and I understand the comparisons you draw to Chevron. But I do want to say that even within the past couple months, we are definitely making strides within the community. We do care about our community. We are listening to our community. We have committed to paying a $15 minimum wage above the legislation. We have also taken ourselves out of terminated our agreements with the city to receive those tax rebates that I know have been so divisive within our community. So I heard you say that Disney does not pay our fair share of taxes. So my question to you is, what is a fair share?
Okay. Well, first of all, with Prop 13, Disney's property, which being this big property owner in Anaheim, would not be able to have a cap on their property taxes like they've had since Prop 13 went into effect. And corporations, Disney included, should not be included in this. Prop 13 was meant for seniors and all homeowners that are struggling to make ends meet and to pay their property taxes. Corporations like Disney have billions of dollars in profit. If this corporate loophole is closed, and it's going to be on the ballot, I believe, in 2020, we will have, as citizens of California, $19 billion in additional taxes every year. Now, I don't know how much of that will come from Disney, but I do know that the average person pays less, and the people in general pay pay more of a percentage of the tax base than big corporations, and that's just not how it should be. We want the big.
But Disney did not cause that loophole, correct? I just want to be clear, and it's not Disney's fault.
Right, but Disney benefited, yes, and corporations did manipulate that situation of Prop 13 that the people voted for a different reason. Corporations did, and we want that.